Back in February, I removed the top of White Mountain on my N-scale layout so that I could access the helix under the mountain more easily. Now I'm repairing the damage that I caused when I removed the mountaintop. Let me show you. Hi, I'm Roy Smith. I built White Mountain on my layout back in 2015. In fact, it was the first 3D scenery I built on my layout. Since then, it has taken me 4 years to get around to removing the top of White Mountain so that I can access the helix under the mountain more easily. That's a good example of why I sometimes call myself the world's slowest model railroader. Anyhow, I finally did remove the top of the mountain in February, but doing so left me with a scenic disaster that I have been wanting to fix ever since. In fact, here's what I said at the end of last Saturday's layout update. I got to tell you that I am really anxious to get back to work on White Mountain over here in order to fix the damage I caused there when I opened the top of White Mountain for better access to the helix, and when I realigned the track there to cross the lift up. Today I'm going to show you the progress I made this week in repairing White Mountain. First though, I want to take you back in time to 2015 when I built the mountain to hide the helix under it. White Mountain is an actual mountain, or rather an escarpment, stretching some 20 miles or so from Green River to Rock Springs in southwestern Wyoming. It is named White Mountain because of the layers of white, or nearly white, sediment rocks it contains. Interstate 80 parallels White Mountain. Here we are heading east on Interstate 80 in the direction of Rock Springs. On my layout, White Mountain sits atop a helix which takes eastbound trains from Green River on the upper level of my layout down to staging tracks representing Cheyenne, Wyoming. Obviously, I took these photos of the helix before beginning to construct White Mountain. I built White Mountain using layers of white styrofoam because extruded styrofoam isn't available here in Panama where I live. As you can see, I have not yet painted White Mountain, but when I do paint it, I will use colors similar to the photographic backdrop of my layout. Back in 2015, I knew I should have made White Mountain removable for access to the helix, but I hated that crack you always see when removable scenery sits atop permanent scenery. So I filled it in with spackling paste, making the mountain a permanent, non-removable part of the scene. Doing this was a mistake because I could no longer remove the mountaintop for access to the helix from above. The only way I could access the helix was by going under the benchwork, and doing that has been a difficult thing to do ever since. Now, back in 2015, I had photos of White Mountain to help me recreate the scenery there. But there was something that I didn't have back then that I do have now, and that is a wonderful video in which White Mountain appears, filmed by your friend and mine, Roy Hardwick, also known as Container Man 68. As you may know, Roy is a trucker and he films the areas he drives through. In fact, he has filmed a bunch of videos of the area I'm modeling. I can't begin to tell you how much I appreciate Roy's videos because they have helped me build the scenery on my layout. I encourage you to go over to Roy's channel later on and take a look around because you may see that he has filmed an area that you are modeling on your layout. I'll put a link to his channel down below. Roy Containerman 68, if you're out there somewhere listening to this, I just want to say thank you. Anyway, let's take a look at White Mountain as Roy filmed it in November as he was driving his truck north on US Highway 191 and was approaching Interstate 80 and Rock Springs, Wyoming.
See if I can get the train. beauty, of course, because it's Wyoming.
To me, nothing is more inspiring than seeing the real thing that I'm trying to model on my layout. So this past February, I finally cut off the top of White Mountain to make the helix once again accessible from above. In case you don't remember, this is what I did in February. All right, I'm going in there now, armed with nothing but this keyhole saw. Hopefully I will live to tell about it. I stopped long enough to put on an old shirt before going in there. I wanted to cut the top off of White Mountain from inside the helix so that I could follow the edge of the top level of the helix to do the cutting. I'm in there now, and I've already cut through the styrofoam. It's moments like this which make you wonder if you made the right decision about doing something. The result was a scenic catastrophe that I knew I would have to fix sooner or later. I had several ways to repair the damage, but this is what I chose to do this week. As you just saw, I cut off the top of the mountain back in February from underneath the benchwork. The problem was the cut I made was vertical, and you can see the vertical cut here. Bad mistake. By making a vertical cut, there was little to hold the mountaintop in place when I reinstalled it. For that reason, what I had to do was make a horizontal cut so that there would be something under the mountaintop to support it. That's the first thing I did this week. I recut the whole thing, this time horizontally. Here you can see the original cut which I have re-glued to the mountaintop, and the new cut on which the mountaintop sits. You can see how easy it now is to clean the helix just by standing on one of those two-step ladders. I applied a thin coat of spackling paste to the rim of the mountain, and then I painted it. I did both of these things to help prevent those little white beads of styrofoam from breaking off the rim and blowing into the helix whenever I removed the mountaintop. I applied spackling paste to the original cut and stippled it with a paintbrush to give it the same texture as the rest of the mountaintop. The spackling paste on the original cut has now dried. It's time to conceal the new cut. This will be a little more challenging. I suppose there are various ways I could have concealed the cut while leaving the mountaintop removable, but this is how I chose to do it, by using shaper sheet. I cut narrow strips of shaper sheet. I attached these strips to the bottom of the rim of the mountaintop with foam nails. I glued the top of each strip of shaper sheet to the removable part of the mountaintop with caulk adhesive. I applied this adhesive only along the top of the shaper sheet and not the bottom. Then I added a few foam nails along the top of the shaper sheet to hold it in place until the caulk adhesive had dried. Now I have finished applying the shaper sheet and the caulk adhesive all along the new cut. The caulk adhesive has dried, so now I'm applying spackling paste along the top edge of the shaper sheet and on the shaper sheet itself, but not along the bottom edge of the shaper sheet, so that the mountaintop continues to be removable. If the spackling paste begins to stick to my finger instead of the shaper sheet, I dip my finger in a cup of water and then continue to apply the spackling paste. I stipple the spackling paste with the tip of a paintbrush to give it a texture like the rest of the mountaintop. Okay, everything has dried, so it's time to see if this is going to work. I need to be able to lift off the mountaintop and replace it without the whole thing falling apart. There you go, success. Bob's your uncle. Well, most of the hard work is now done, but I still have to paint the spackling paste with colors to match the adjacent scenery. I will use Woodland Scenic's earth tone pigments to do this, just as I did when I built the mountain originally back in 2015. I will install ground covers and plants on the mountain, especially to help hide the crack where the mountain top sits atop the permanent scenery. I want the vegetation on White Mountain to look something like this when I'm done. I expect to have the spackling paste painted by next Saturday, and I may even have a chance to get started with the vegetation. So what's the best advice I can give you based on my experience? Well, it's this. If you're hiding a helix or any other track under scenery, make sure that the track can be accessed easily. In other words, don't take the Roy Smith approach to building scenery. Make access to the track your first priority and not just an afterthought. Well, that just about wraps up this week's layout update. Remember, I still have tons and tons of stuff to do on my layout. In fact, it probably won't ever be completely done. So if you're new here, be sure to subscribe and hit that little bell icon in order to come along with me on this continuing adventure in model railroading. Also remember, I upload a weekly show called Dispatch on Tuesday nights in which I get to interact with you, and I upload a layout update on Saturday mornings. That's what you're watching right now. I hope you will join me for both of these episodes each week. Well, until next time then, thanks for watching. Happy railroading. I'm Roy Smith, and I will see you again very soon.